guest speaker today is Sharmin Smith. Sharmin describes herself as a military brat and spouse, author, speaker, aspiring politician. She was born in the projects and today lives in a mansion. She has a story to tell, but today she's going to reflect on running for politics. She's going to talk about her 2020 candidate for presidential elections and some insights for you all. Sharmin, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. My name is Sharmin Smith. I've been invited to speak with you today at the Lady Politico Global Leadership Conference because I ran for President of the United States of America in 2020. I'd like to thank Hazel Harrington at Harrington Publications Worldwide and Coach Erica Love for connecting us and giving me the opportunity to share my story. Where better is there a place than a global leadership conference about women, politics, and power, where the focus is barriers to participation and leadership, to share my story, some tips and dirty tricks that taught me invaluable lessons that may benefit you as you pursue your ambitions. What started out for me as a fictional life story turned into a protest write-in campaign and then a full-blown smear campaign created by opposition research that I hired and paid for myself. My path has been unique, and I hope to share with you suggestions and warnings, but above all, the importance of keeping your sense of humor. You'll need it. If you're here, you're most likely following a call that comes from your heart, and your head is trying to talk you out of it. It's failing, but it's still trying. You're smart. You know running for office is an uphill battle, and you will probably fail, but you want to do it anyways. You can't shut that voice up no matter how hard you try. There is no amount of weed, wine, or whiskey that will drown it out. Trust me, I tried. I'm willing to bet that your fear does not lie in creating policy about health care or gun rights. It's the reality that World War III could break out on your block and be just as scary as Putin's invasion of Ukraine. As the reality of war looms over us, we may all be looking around our communities and assessing who is on what side. I had no clue who I was hiring in June of 2018 when I set out on my impossible mission to run for president. I was grateful for a company that crossed my path with the purpose of teaching you how to give interviews, get on podcasts, radio, and TV, plus monetize my content. What more could an aspiring politician ask for? It never occurred to me that this marketing dream come true would pitch me to one of Trump's senior campaign advisors. They knew Trump was my competition. Why would they compromise me like that? Not knowing what QAnon was in August of 18, it was laughable that little old me would be important enough for Trump to pay attention to. So when the marketing team dropped an answered prayer in my lap, I didn't consider her to be dangerous. I just said, "Thank you, Lord." I know you're worried about gotcha questions, and you'll have to get good at getting out of getting got. Getting got is one thing when it's a foreign policy question. It's another when it's an extortion attempt by your campaign manager. She was a Gen X tech guru who had worked for the Democratic National Convention in 16, the Super Bowl in 18. She immediately told me about a childhood sexual assault where she had been kidnapped for 4 days in North Philadelphia. So a presidential candidate who was open about being an adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse, with my number one campaign issue as a death penalty for pedophiles, she assured me she was my biggest supporter. May I suggest researching narcissistic abuse patterns with a focus on love bombing, trauma bonding, reactive abuse, projection, and the hive mind? Emotional abuse can be used in many ways, and people will bait you into conflict for the purpose of discrediting you and having something to hold over you. Your emotions will be used against you by both men and women. They'll be quick to call you crazy, and you should familiarize yourself with the Martha Mitchell effect. I smile when I tell them all women are crazy, and this is my brand of crazy. Robin Williams said, "We're only given a little spark of madness in us. So what if this is mine?" The day after that marketing team pitched me to Trump, they pitched me to Elisa Jordana from the Howard Stern show. In February 21, right after the insurrection, Elisa invited me to be on her podcast, if I was brave enough. It's a variety show out of Hollywood that brings together all walks of life under the guise of being a church and a new religion based on the love of her dog Kermit, who died during the COVID lockdowns. The kind of church where Andy Dick is an ordained minister and all are welcome. Atheists, Jews, Muslims, Christians, Catholics, and spiritual people come together once a week to laugh and fight in the good-hearted spirit of trolling. Was there a better place for a failed presidential candidate to share her story of accidentally feeding the QAnon beast in hopes of undoing some of the damage she didn't intend to cause? I think not. I confessed my sins to Pope Elisa in hopes the congregation would embrace me and I could do whatever possible to expose QAnonsense. I've been there every Sunday ever since, and you can binge hours of content of Kermit and Friends on YouTube or see me live Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time in the US. Don't miss the KAF wrap-up show directly after. I'm Wheezy's co-host. It took 8 months before I fully opened up about my campaign manager, and Zarina was on the show within weeks. Watch the Anonymous Woman episode where she admitted she had never been raped. That was the moment I realized all of her stories were lies. She shamed my mental health and tried to spin the story, but I brought receipts, text messages, emails, police reports, contracts. I have it all. I felt confident the Kermitarians would support me. KAF Discord is a major part of that. If you're looking for a place to thicken your skin, this is where I've been. Where else will you meet the guy that claims responsibility for the Clinton kill list? You know, the guy that created the list of people Hillary Clinton had killed throughout her career? Getting to know that guy gave me greater appreciation for Hillary and the trolling she's endured through her years. His tips to terrorize get a whole chapter in my next book. There is more than one way to drain you. It's not just your cash, your credit, your reputation, your dignity, or your desire to help others that will be drained. It's easy for me to look back on my story and point to countless times I could have stopped. I tried in 2019, but Z wouldn't let me. And the events of 2020 that took place that tied to me personally were too big to ignore. Where did all that QAnon stuff go? The RNC in Jacksonville? White Oleander curing COVID? The Rose Garden, restarting federal executions, Kenosha, all of that looked to me like dirty tricks designed to draw out a viable third-party candidate to split the vote. The price of participation in politics is steeper than you think. What starts out as a joke doesn't look funny when you're standing in the middle of a town you call home, and people are calling it. Participation is unknown by the masses, but I believe my story holds key to unlocking the coded message that tricked so many of our friends, family, and fellow citizens into believing lies designed to jumpstart this war. You're welcome to buy a copy of my book that started it all, Taming the Titta. I self-published 6 months before Trump announced his campaign, and any similarities to actual events were unplanned by me. I wrote this book with the honest belief that it would unite and heal our nation, and there's no better time for that to happen than now. The US and the world deserve better than it got in 2020, and I apologize for my part in that. Hindsight being 2020, my story is a lot scarier now as I watch Putin's plan unfold. It's not brave if you're not scared, and this is the home of the free because of the brave. Let this be a moment that unites us. It's one thing to own my mistakes and apologize. It's another to clean up my mess. As sorry as I am, I can't clean this up alone, and I'm grateful for every chance I have to share my truth and people who are willing to give truth a chance. You can find me on most social media platforms under Sharmin Smith or Taming the Titta. My website is sharminsmith.com. You can Google Sharmin Smith and President and find plenty of information and interviews on me, good and bad. I'm not perfect. I'm working on 2 books right now, one inspired by this speech, Ms. Please, Lessons Learned from the Campaign Trail of a Female Presidential Hopeful, and A Midsummer's Nightmare, my personal perspective of some of the events of 2020. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Sharmin's Web of Truth and Lies, where you can get a glimpse into my most recent extortion attempt. I've got a gang of goons causing me problems. It's taken me a long time to get here, and I'm not going anywhere. When the time comes that you do see my name on a ballot, I hope you'll be sure to put your check next to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know I have so many questions that I would love to delve into with you, but we have limited time, right? So I've got one, and then Hazel has one as well. My question for you is, have you got a tip for other women aspiring for leadership or political positions around how do they surround themselves with the right people?
That's a really good question, but the following the narcissistic tips, because people will try to get close to you and you do need to be careful. And the lesson that I've learned is no second chances. As soon as there's a problem, cut them loose.
Thank you. I like that it's so simple in a way. It's complex, but let's get down to the basics. Hazel, you've got a really great question as well.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Sharmin, wow. I love your story. And I mean, this story will continue way after this conference. My question is, what does trust mean in politics? And should women really be worried about their reputation when they're running for office? Because what you've just explained to us is that when you go into politics, you have to be alert and you have to be in a position to ruin even your own reputation. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you need to be prepared to be falsely accused of every bad thing in the book. I've been accused of being a pedophile, of plagiarizing my book, of everything you could possibly imagine. I've had threats of violence. You know, the thing is that once you get this calling, once you know this is where you're meant to be, nothing is going to stop you. So as long as you know their lies, you just have to keep pushing through.
Yeah. But what does trust mean in politics?
Trust is subjective to each person, and trust has been lost by our elected officials. And there are so many gamesmanship taking place at this point in time where dirty games are done to destroy each other. You have to have trust in yourself, and you need to build a team around you that you can trust too.
Fantastic. I love what Lisa says. Lisa says, trust yourself. You're right about that, Lisa. Thank you, Sarah. Continue.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Listen, what I'm hearing from that are a couple of key points around building a really solid team around you, trusting yourself, and that caring for self is a big part of that, having tough skin, but also looking after your mental well-being. This is a tough gig, stepping up. So thank you for sharing your tips, and I hope that this gives others confidence. Well, thank you for that presentation. I know you want to keep talking and hearing that story.